What if a single step off your usual path, just one, could hand you the family you never knew you'd lost? What if the world broke your heart in half, only to stitch it back together with the smallest hands you've ever held? Nathan Sullivan hadn't meant to walk through Central Park that morning. He hadn't meant to do anything for months, maybe years. The truth was, some wounds don't heal. They become your furniture, a part of the house you live in but never really see. When Nathan's daughter, Emily, passed away, he let the rest of his life go with her. His marriage had already cracked at the edges, and when she died, so did any version of himself that resembled a man you'd want to sit next to at a dinner table. He didn't rage. He didn't scream. He simply stopped. Stopped taking meetings. Stopped calling friends. Stopped replying to Mara, the housekeeper who'd stayed on out of loyalty and maybe pity. Stopped stepping into Emily's bedroom, the pale pink room where toys still lay in the exact place she'd left them. Sometimes Nathan would stand in the hallway outside that door, cup of cold coffee in hand, listening for a sound he knew would never come. A laugh, the squeak of a stuffed bear dragged across the floor, a voice yelling, "Daddy, come play." But none of it came. Not until that one morning when the sun pressed stubbornly through the rain-heavy clouds, turning the window into a blurry watercolor. Nathan stared through it, half awake, his reflection so faint it looked like a ghost hovering over the park below. And for once, instead of turning away, he reached for his coat. As he rode in the back of his car, Nathan's mind drifted to the last person who'd made this house feel like something more than stone. Lily. She'd been Emily's night nurse for 10 months. He still remembered the first night Lily walked in, clutching a battered canvas bag, hair pulled back in a messy bun, eyes tired but bright. "Mr. Sullivan," she'd said, "if it's okay, I'd like to read to her tonight." Nathan almost laughed. He'd been paying for the best specialists in the city. They talked about white blood cells and radiation levels, but nobody had offered to read Emily a bedtime story. "Please," he'd said. And for weeks, Lily sat on the edge of Emily's bed, reading fairy tales in a soft voice, even as for drips beeped and the world turned dim. Sometimes, Nathan would stand in the hallway, listening. Once, Lily caught him. She stepped out, closing the door behind her. "You should come in," she said. "I don't want to wake her," he'd lied. "She's already awake. She's just waiting for you to sit down." But he didn't. Not that night. Not the next. By the time he found the courage, Emily was too tired to hear his voice. When she was gone, Lily stayed 2 weeks longer, helping Nathan sort tiny clothes, packing away the stuffed animals that still smelled like baby lotion. Then she was gone too, leaving behind a note thanking him for trusting her with his daughter's last good nights. Nathan hadn't heard from her since. So when he stepped into Central Park that day, his shoes crunching over crisp leaves, the wind scratching at his face, he never expected Lily to find him again, especially not like this. Not through 2 girls in matching thrift store coats and a baby wrapped in a blanket, so thin you could see the outline of his tiny shoulders. The older girl, Emma, looked right at him, and in that gaze, Nathan saw something he'd thought he'd buried. Hope, not the kind that shouts, the quiet kind that waits at the end of a hallway, wondering if you'll come inside. The older girl, Emma, didn't flinch when Nathan took a careful step closer. Her small chin lifted, as if she was trying to look taller than she was 7, maybe 8. But her shoulders carried more than any child should. Beside her, Rosie squeezed the baby closer to her chest. A soft hiccup escaped from the blanket, a sound so tiny, so alive. It snapped something in Nathan's ribcage. "Hey," Nathan said, crouching down. His coat brushed the damp gravel. "Is your mom close by? Maybe behind that tree." He gestured, but Emma didn't look. "She's gone," Emma said plainly. Not a sob, not a wail, Just the flat truth of a child who's learned not to hope for magic. Nathan's throat tightened. Gone where? Emma's gaze dropped to Rosie's shoe, the sole peeling at the side. She said she was too tired. She said someone would come. Someone with eyes like yours. It felt like an accusation. It felt like a lifeline. Rosie, who hadn't spoken yet, peeked at Nathan from under tangled hair. Her lip quivered, but she didn't look away. She held the baby, Noah, so tight that Nathan could see her knuckles turning white. Is he okay? Nathan asked softly. Rosie's voice was so soft he almost missed it. Cold. Nathan swallowed hard. He shrugged out of his long coat, draping it over the baby like a makeshift blanket. The coat dwarfed Rosie too. She looked like a ghost in navy wool. Still, she blinked at him, wide-eyed, as if memorizing his face. Nathan wanted to promise her he'd never forget hers. Minutes later, Nathan's Blacktown car pulled up at the park entrance. His driver, Alan, stepped out, confusion creasing his brow. In 10 years, Alan had never seen his employer look so unguarded. "Sir, open the doors," Nathan said. His voice left no room for questions. He lifted Noah first. The baby's skin was cool to the touch. For a second, Nathan thought he'd stop breathing, until a hiccup rattled his tiny chest. Nathan pressed him closer, feeling that fragile heartbeat against his palm. Rosie slid in beside him, still wrapped in the coat. Emma climbed in last, folding her hands in her lap. The doors closed with a soft click, sealing them in together, a makeshift family drawn together by something bigger than sense. As the car pulled away, Nathan watched the park recede through the window. The trees blurred, the winding paths vanished behind them. Part of him wanted to go back, to check every bench, every trash can, every hidden corner for Lily. Maybe she'd be there, waiting for him to fix it. But Lily was gone, and these children, they were what she'd left behind. When they arrived at his townhouse, the children hesitated at the curb. Emma stared up at the tall brownstone, its vine-wrapped balcony and brass knocker that hadn't been touched in years. "This is your house?" she asked, her voice so small it nearly blew away in the wind. "For now," Nathan said. "It's yours too." Emma's eyes narrowed, as if she didn't dare believe him. Inside, the hallway felt too wide, each footstep echoing like a secret. The children stood in the foyer, shivering, eyes darting from the grand staircase to the abstract paintings on the wall. Mara appeared at the far end of the hallway, tea towel in hand, her eyes wide. "Mr. Sullivan?" she whispered, voice stuck halfway between shock and something like relief. Nathan realized she hadn't seen him look alive in a long time. "These are our guests," Nathan said, clearing his throat. "They're staying here. Please find them something warm. And food." Mara blinked, then snapped into action. "Of course. Come here, sweetheart." She held out a hand to Rosie, who clutched Noah tighter instead. Emma stepped in front of her sister. "We're fine." Nathan crouched down again, ignoring the ache in his knees on the marble floor. "You're safe here, Emma. You don't have to protect her alone anymore." Emma's eyes glistened. Her chin trembled, but she didn't let the tears fall. Not yet. Mara brought soup, simple broth, soft bread, slices of apple arranged like stars on a plate. Emma ate slowly, spoon trembling as she lifted it. Rosie wouldn't touch hers until she saw Emma take a bite. Nathan watched them from the armchair, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles ached. He'd spent years signing deals worth millions, negotiating mergers with stone-faced investors. Yet here he was, breath held like a child, praying these two girls would trust him enough to swallow warm soup. When Rosie finally leaned into Mara's side, her eyes fluttering shut, Emma exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for days. Nathan didn't move. He just watched, this tiny moment of safety blooming in the ruin of his quiet house. When the bowls were cleared, Emma stood. She dug into her backpack again, the same battered bag she'd clutched like a lifeline in the park. She held out a folded envelope, edges soft from being handled so many times. "Mommy said you'd need this," Emma said. Nathan took it with trembling hands. Inside, Lily's handwriting, rushed and uneven. "Nathan, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't stay. Please, don't let him find them. Keep them together. Rosie doesn't speak much, but she listens. Emma is braver than she knows. And Noah, he's your chance to be the man you were always meant to be. I never thanked you for Emily's last days. Now I'm asking you to give these days to them. Lily." Nathan pressed the letter to his lips. The room blurred. A life he'd buried so deep was reaching out through Lily's final words, asking him to come back to the living. He looked up at Emma and Rosie, these pieces of Lily's heart. He wasn't sure he deserved them, but he knew he would not fail them. By the next morning, the hush of the townhouse was gone. Emma's tiny sneakers left tracks on the polished floors. Rosie's soft hum drifted through the hallway, while Mara folded small piles of laundry that hadn't existed here just days ago. Noah babbled from his crib, a sound that filled the silence Nathan had once mistaken for peace. But peace was fragile, because Mark Evans didn't disappear. It came 3 days later. Nathan had just returned from a quick run to the pharmacy. Diapers, formula, children's vitamins, things he hadn't bought since Emily. He found Mark standing on the stoop, like a stain that wouldn't wash away. Slick hair, expensive overcoat, smile too wide to mean anything good. "Nice place," Mark drawled, eyes drifting up the vine-wrapped brick, the brass door knocker. "Haven't seen you since the gala, Nathan. Or should I say, since you stole my kids." Nathan's fingers curled around the grocery bag. They were alone in Central Park. Their children, not assets you forgot in your divorce settlement. Mark stepped forward, voice dropping to a venomous hush. "Listen, hero, you think Lily didn't lie? She told you some sob story about me. She was sick, paranoid. Those girls aren't even mine legally. But Noah, he's my blood." Nathan's throat burned. He thought of Lily's letter, how she'd begged him not to let Mark find them. "You left them. You don't get to claim them now." Mark laughed. "Courts see blood, not your sad eyes, Nathan. I've got money, lawyers, and enough dirt on you to make you look like a broken wreck. You think a grieving recluse makes a stable parent." Nathan's pulse roared in his ears. He knew how courts worked. He'd fought corporate battles with entire legions of attorneys. But this wasn't a merger. This was 3 children who'd chosen to trust him. "Leave," Nathan said. His voice was low, final. Mark leaned close enough that Nathan could smell stale cologne and cigarette smoke. "See you in court." The hearing came faster than Nathan expected. One moment he was tying Emma's shoelaces while she explained why toast tasted better when it was a little burnt. The next, he was seated under the stale fluorescence of family court, his lawyer, Daniel Lang, flipping through a battered folder. Emma sat on a bench outside the courtroom, swinging her legs back and forth. Rosie perched beside her, tracing the grooves on the wooden bench with one fingertip. Noah slept on Mara's shoulder, his breath soft against her collar. Daniel leaned closer. "Nathan, Mark's going to push the narrative you're emotionally unstable. He'll say you're using these kids to patch a hole you won't fill." Nathan stared at his reflection in a pane of glass, the circles under his eyes, the streak of gray at his temples, the tie Emma had chosen for him that morning because it was friendly. "He can say whatever he wants," Nathan said. "He didn't sit up with Rosie when she woke up screaming last night. He didn't rock Noah back to sleep. He doesn't braid Emma's hair every morning." Daniel's lips twitched. "That's the man you show them, Nathan. Not the CEO. The father. The judge, a woman with sharp eyes and the faintest softness around her mouth, listened as Mark's lawyer painted his story. Your Honor, my client, Mr. Evans, was unfairly denied his rights as a father. The children were taken from Central Park without due process. Mr. Sullivan, a man who has publicly retreated from life after a family tragedy, has no legal claim. There's no formal guardianship, no adoption, no blood tie except for Noah, Mr. Evans's biological son. Nathan felt the words strike like stones against his chest, but when the judge turned to him, he stood, steady, even as every part of him screamed. I found Emma and Rosie in the park, Nathan said, voice clear. No coats, no guardian. They were alone, scared, cold. Lily, their mother, left a letter asking me to protect them. She trusted me with her children because she knew I'd never abandon them. He reached into his pocket, pulling out the letter, edges worn thin. He held it up. Your Honor, this is not about blood. It's about trust. Lily knew what Mark was. And these children, they know who's safe. They've chosen me. Mark scoffed from his table. They're kids. They'll say what they're told. Emma jolted forward. That's not true. Her voice cracked an echo of the courtroom. The judge raised a hand. Miss Emma, would you like to speak? Emma stepped to the front, tiny fists clenched at her sides. He didn't tell me to say anything. Mark, he's not nice. He yelled at Mommy. He said Rosie was stupid. He said Noah was the only good one. But Mr. Sullivan, he stays. He makes pancakes. He reads to us. He stays. A hush settled over the room, so deep that even the judge blinked a few times to clear it. Then something unexpected. Rosie, silent as a ghost since the park, stepped forward. She tugged at the hem of Nathan's suit jacket. He knelt beside her. You want to say something? He whispered. Rosie nodded. She turned to the judge, her tiny voice a breath, but clear as day. He makes the monsters go away. It wasn't legal language. It wasn't evidence. But it was truth. And in family court, sometimes truth has teeth. The judge leaned forward, fingers steepled. Mr. Evans, you left these children unsupervised. You claim you want your son, but your actions suggest otherwise. I will grant Mr. Sullivan temporary guardianship until the next hearing. Mark's face hardened, lips pulling back in a cold smile. This isn't over. Nathan didn't flinch. He rested a hand on Emma's shoulder, another on Rosie's small back. He looked Mark dead in the eye, and for the first time in years, Nathan Sullivan felt like the man he'd once promised to be. The weeks that followed the first hearing felt like a quiet, stubborn heartbeat. Each morning began the same. 3 sets of small feet padding down the hallway. Giggles that didn't exist here before. The smell of oatmeal and burnt toast drifting through a kitchen once cold and untouched. Emma took charge in ways that reminded Nathan of Lily, bossy in the gentlest way, always making sure Rosie ate her strawberries before her toast, that Noah's tiny socks stayed on his tiny feet. Rosie still barely spoke, but each night, Nathan would find her standing in the hallway, blanket clutched to her chest, waiting to be carried back to bed when nightmares came. And each night he did. He'd tuck her in, run his hand over her hair, and whisper, "No monsters tonight. Not while I'm here." Some mornings, Nathan caught himself standing at the window again, mug of coffee warm in his hand. But the reflection that looked back at him wasn't the ghost anymore. It was a father, a man awake, present, rebuilding brick by brick. Mark Evans didn't disappear. Another letter, another motion filed, more threats whispered through the lawyer's cold smiles. This time, he demanded a paternity test for Noah, claimed he had every right to split the siblings apart. Nathan sat across from Daniel Lang in his study, The letter opened between them. "Blood doesn't mean father," Nathan said. His voice was steady, but his hands trembled. Daniel looked at him over the rims of his glasses. "Then we prove it. Character witnesses, doctor reports, and we lean on Rosie and Emma. The judge needs to see this isn't a trophy for Mark. It's family." Nathan stared at the photo on his desk. Emily laughing on a swing in Central Park. And now, tucked beside it, a new one. Emma, Rosie, and Noah curled together on the couch, heads pressed close like they were trying to become one single heartbeat. The courthouse felt different this time. Maybe it was because Emma held his hand tighter, or because Rosie wore one of Emily's old sweaters, a faded yellow thing, 2 sizes too big, but somehow perfect. Mark's lawyer tried to shred Nathan on the stand. "Isn't it true you withdrew from society after your daughter died? That you abandoned your company, your friends, even your marriage?" Nathan didn't flinch. He spoke clearly, so the children in the back row could hear him. "Yes, I was broken. I stayed broken for a long time. But I didn't abandon my daughter while she was sick. I didn't run when things got hard. I was there, every step until her last breath. And when Lily asked me to stay for her children, I said yes. I didn't look for them. They found me, and I'm not leaving." At the very end, the judge asked if the children wanted to speak. Emma stepped forward, voice steady as steel. "Please don't make us go. We belong with him." Then Rosie, quiet Rosie, did something no one expected. She walked up to the bench, her bunny clutched under one arm. She lifted her small chin, met the judge's eyes, and whispered, "He stays. He makes us safe. He makes the monsters go away." The courtroom held its breath. Even Mark, smirk frozen mid-face, seemed to deflate. When the judge ruled, the words felt like sunlight breaking through old glass. "Full guardianship is granted to Mr. Sullivan for Emma, Rosie, and Noah. The motion to separate siblings is denied. Mr. Evans's parental claim is rescinded based on abandonment and failure to demonstrate fitness." Emma squeezed Nathan's hand so tight he felt his bones ache. Rosie pressed her face into his side. Noah giggled oblivious, his tiny fingers tugging at Nathan's tie. Mark stood frozen, the last piece of control slipping through his clenched fists. For the first time since the day in the park, Nathan exhaled a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. The townhouse changed after that, not just with toys scattered under couches or drawings taped crookedly on the fridge, but with life, with warmth, with tiny rituals that stitched the days together. Some nights, Nathan found Rosie humming lullabies she'd learned from Lily, her voice growing braver with every verse. Emma read books aloud under a blanket fort built with couch cushions and his old suit jackets. Noah learned to stand on wobbly legs, using Nathan's arm like a safety rail. Mara's eyes glistened whenever she passed the hallway where Emily's bedroom door used to stay shut. Now it was open, a room reborn as Rosie's, full of watercolor paintings, stacks of books, and a small nightlight that flickered like a promise. One rainy afternoon, Emma pulled an envelope from her backpack, crumpled, smudged with old tears. "I found this in Mommy's old coat," she said. Inside was Lily's looping handwriting. "Nathan, if you're reading this, you did it. You gave them what I couldn't. Tell them I loved them. Tell them they were never a burden. Tell them they were the best thing I ever did. And you were always enough, even when you didn't believe it. Lily." Nathan read it aloud, voice cracking. Emma pressed her head into his shoulder. Rosie curled up in his lap. Noah babbled, reaching for the paper, as if he wanted to hold the last piece of his mother's words in his small, chubby hands. Sometimes family isn't something you're born into. Sometimes it finds you on a park bench, in a letter, in the tiny arms that wrap around your neck in the middle of the night. Nathan Sullivan didn't plan to be a father again. He didn't plan to trade boardrooms for bedtime stories or cold silence for giggles echoing down the hallway. But when the world breaks you, it's not always the end. Sometimes, if you're lucky, it's an invitation to build something braver, something softer, a life stitched together with second chances. So tell us, where are you watching this from? Do you believe family can find you in the most unexpected places? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're ready for another story about second chances, trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Hit that subscribe button. And never forget, the best stories are the ones that remind us we're never too broken to be loved.